Hey, good morning, everybody, and happy Friday Eve, the day before Friday. Hey, this is Ryan Christ at TEXTON. I want to welcome you to the fundamentals of motorization. I have with me Navera Fisher, who is our product manager of motorization. Um, just a few housekeeping items. I will be placing all of us on mute, just so each of us can have uninterrupted experience here during the presentation. Um, We are not using live video. I'm just sharing my screen. So on the screen, you should be seeing motorization, a little picture of an iPhone, as well as our logo. If you have any questions during the presentation, maybe you're having an issue seeing our slides or something, or just have a question in general, feel free to use the chat window or the chat feature with Zoom. I am monitoring that as we do this discussion. Um, so yeah, so a little bit about TextOn. If you're new to our webinars or have not you know done business with TextOn in the past, so we actually started our company in 1941. We got our start actually doing roller shades for the Army barracks way back when. And so roller shades and window treatments for commercial and residential markets has been our forte going forward. Most recently, we actually just received a tremendous award from the Window Covering Manufacturers Association for our new product called Color. We actually beat out some industry juggernauts such as Hunter Douglas and Levelor for our new roller shade program. If you are not familiar with Color, I would encourage you to visit our website or contact your sales rep, or actually just reply to the email that I sent you, and I would be more than happy to tell you about that. So let's kind of jump in here. So as I mentioned, my name is Ryan Christ. I'm the director of marketing, and your co-host today is Navera Fisher, who is our product manager of motorization. And just kind of a quick overview of what we're going to be covering. So as I mentioned, this is more so of a non-techie discussion, meant to just provide the foundations for some future events that we'll have throughout the course of the year and going forward. So essentially, talking about items or the products that can be motorized. From there, go into the available power options and provide some clarity between a battery and low voltage and house power and so forth. Also, I touch on, kind of, the best ways to control your motorized applications between remote switches and voice control. Also, I talk on, which motor and technology is best for each application. We know that there are several types of motors out there, and we support all of them. Just making sure that we can communicate, hey, it's best to use this motor for this application and so forth. And then two, as we get forward or move forward on the sales process and discovery and whatnot, ensuring that not only you but the end user has a phenomenal customer experience with that motorization. So with that, being able to set the right customer expectations and so forth. So without further ado, let's see who is Mr. Navera Fisher. So, Mr. Navero, kind of give us your background here,
Sure.
sir.
Good morning, everybody. First of all, I'd like to thank you for joining us today for the initial TEXTON webinar about motorization. As Ryan said earlier, this is not going to be a real technical, detailed type discussion, but it should be a discussion that generates more questions. You will get my contact information, so I hope after the webinar, if there's other things you need or more information that we don't cover, reach out to me and I'll be happy to look into that for you on a one-on-one basis. I can email you whatever you may need, but I'm definitely going to be able to answer any questions you may have. I have been in this industry for about 20 years. Motors have changed a lot over the past 20 years. I'm still learning. Every day is something new. That's the one thing I do like about motorization. No one knows everything. So what I don't know, I will definitely find out for you. But I do have a lot of knowledge that I love to share with people and I love to teach. I spent 10 years at BTX Window Automation. Is kind of where I got my start. I was an automation specialist there. Went ahead and moved up to Timberblind Metro Shades, spent 10 years there as their motorization specialist. And then I came on board here at TEXTON at the end of April, beginning of May as their product manager for motorization. So a varied background in motorization. So I have a little bit of everything. So I hopefully should be able to help y'all out in any areas you may need. I'm married, have a couple of kids, 2 dogs, a cat, a turtle, and a tortoise. So I am kind of an animal lover, but that does make things interesting around the house.
Okay, so a tortoise and a turtle. What is the difference between those two? Because I myself didn't know that there was a difference.
Okay, so I'll give you all a quick little lesson in tortoises and turtles. The big difference between the two is that a tortoise cannot swim. A turtle can live on land as well as swim, but a tortoise lives on land and cannot swim. Their feet and legs look like elephants, basically, and a turtle has more web feet. So that is your animal discussion for today, the difference between a tortoise and a turtle.
Very cool. All right, so let's jump into a different animal or a different beast, being a motorization. So when we hear about motorization, I always think of common applications such as like roller shades and whatnot being motorized. But with that being said, what kinds of products and applications can actually be motorized?
You started out right on cue there with roller shades, TEXTON being a big roller shade company, and everyone's doing a lot of roller shades these days. So of course we can motorize roller shades, whether that be a single shade setup, a dual shade setup, an open roll shade, fascia, cassette. We're also an Alta distributor, so simplicity motorization with cell shades, drapery tracks, whether it be a one-way draw to the left or right, even a split draw. We can do a dual motor track for a heavy treatment, inverted motors for pocket applications. And we also do exterior stuff, whether it be awnings or exterior roller shades. We do have a department dedicated for outdoor shades and outdoor applications. So if the outdoor deal is something that you're really going to be getting into, let us know, even if you reach out, because I want to get you connected to the correct people that will help you with that outdoor application.
Awesome. So, I naturally really anything that is motorized needs power.
Of course.
I think one of the biggest challenges or questions that our customers face is, what is the right type of power required for their application?
Yeah, I do hear that a lot. And I know it's sometimes confusing because people are always, what motor do I pick for this? What motor I did pick for that? I'm going to break down the power, but I also want to let you know that, in our book kind of lays a chart out of the motors for sizes of what shades go with what. So that is a very good resource. And if you don't have that, let us know. We can make sure we get you a price book that has the charts in there. But, starting out with battery power. Battery power is kind of broken up into 2 phases. We have external battery motors as well as internal battery motors. There are a lot of size limitations with your external battery motor with a wand. It's not a very heavy motor, so you're really looking at your size limitations there. When you get to the rechargeable batteries and low voltage, those are still going to be about on the same size. So if you're within your like 120 to 120 sizes, usually your rechargeable type motor or your low voltage style motor will accommodate a shade like that. And then you go all the way up to like a line voltage, which is 110 to 120 volt motor, would be the shade using for the bigger things. External shades like the outdoor shade applications always use AC motors because you can make a really large shade with using an AC or line voltage style motor.
Gotcha. And so, given, like new or existing construction, what's to be taken into consideration for that?
Okay, if you are looking at a home and the customer has told you that they've run low voltage, then, that's what you're going to want to do. You're going to want to have to go the low voltage route. If they can't get any power to the window, the house is already built, obviously, then you're going to want to look for like a external battery wand motor if it's a small window, or even the rechargeable motors that work at a larger size but are very convenient in those applications where you don't have any wire. Now, you mentioned construction, new construction. A new construction type deal is a blank canvas. That's going to just give you the ability to wire any way you want. I'm a fan of wired things because you never have to go back to recharge them or change batteries. So if you're going to have the opportunity to do a wired type application, that is the route you want to go. Now, I know when you say the wired application, you start getting worried about what wire to use and all that. It's very simple to think of it as just low voltage wire is like a speaker wire. So I can really get into that a little bit more if you're doing a lot of low voltage applications. I don't want to bog everybody down with the technical aspect of it, but a wired motor is going to be something that's going to be more maintenance free than any type of rechargeable or external battery motor. Now, an existing construction home, like I kind of mentioned earlier, that's going to be a different set of challenges. You're going to want to find out, can they even pull wire? Do they want to pull wire? If a customer is going to have to pull wire on an existing home, it could get costly. So again, that's where you want to kind of massage that job so that you maybe a rechargeable motor works in that application. No wire is needed. Are your windows too small for a rechargeable motor? Then you can go with the external battery wand motor to get those even smaller shades. So, these are just the kind of questions that you want to ask yourself while you're formulating the plan that you can give the client options. You'll already know what direction you're headed before you go in there to even talk to them.
Gotcha. So, I guess with that being said, when should someone use battery versus low voltage, house wire and all that?
Okay, well, I'll break it down the battery into a couple of deals. I kind of mentioned it earlier, but battery motors are in two categories. You're going to have your battery motor with an external wand, and then you're going to have a battery motor that's built inside of the motor that would be considered rechargeable. On your external battery motors, we're talking about 8-pound lifting capacity, very small shades, 15 inches or less, something like that. Maybe over a bathtub, small window, maybe a door, something like that is where you would want to use an external battery motor. Now, again, that is a very limited motor, so you want to take that in consideration when you're going to be using it. Staying onto that line, the rechargeable motors, that's going to take you up another step and give you a wider range of motors as well as lifting capacity. The rechargeable motors are similar to a low voltage motor. So you're looking somewhere in the 120 to about 120 range, of course, depending on fabric and other things, but that's kind of like a guide you can use. If you're under 120, you can use the rechargeable low voltage type motors. When you get bigger than that is when you may want to talk to us or look at what's available in that chart. Solar power. This is something else that's kind of gaining traction with everybody wanting to go green and whatnot like that. The solar panel is an option you can use for power. But I want to make a couple of things clear here. In that picture you see, that is the solar panel setup for Somfy. And you see it has the solar panel, which was called the solar collector, and a battery wand. That battery wand actually has rechargeable batteries in it. It's specially made for that particular setup. Now, the Volta solar panel connects directly to a rechargeable motor. So if you have a Volta motor in an application, maybe high up, because I get some of those questions as well, you could put a solar panel on there and it can keep the motor charged without having to actually plug it into a charger. Now the caveat to that is this though, if you're using a solar panel, you want to make sure that it's getting good sun. If it's a shady application or perhaps the customer has tinted windows, a solar panel is not going to be the best thing for you. And also, a solar panel is acting on a trickle charge. And a little analogy for those that may not know what a trickle charge is that think of the battery as being like a bucket of water with a hole in it. As power is used, would be the water trickling out of that bucket. Now, if you turn your faucet on barely, the water going into that bucket will overcome the water going out. So you can still keep that level somewhat high. If you drain the bucket out completely and then use a very thin trickle of water in the bucket, it's never going to fill back up. Solar panel is the same way. It will not charge up a flat battery. It's not going to be a charger. It's only going to work with the battery that's already fully charged. It just keeps it charged. So if you're going to get a lot of use out of it, that it's not going to be in the sun, it's not going to get direct sunlight, the solar panel application may not be the best for what you're doing. The low voltage side, again, kind of put this in perspective with the rechargeable motor as far as size-wise. The size-wise of your rechargeable and your low voltage are going to be pretty much mirroring. Now, the good thing about low voltage, it's a wired application. Now, in the slide, you see just a one-to-one style transformer. That would plug into the motor directly on a little cable coming out of the motor and then into your standard AC outlet. Now, one thing I want to say about this charger, someone had asked me a question about things you may not know. That charger light will turn green once that motor gets to a specific charge, but that does not indicate the motor is fully charged. Excuse me, I'm wrapping two things together because I forgot to tell you about on the rechargeable motor on the charger, the green light does not mean it's fully charged. It takes 6 hours to get a fully charge on that motor. I just wanted to throw that in because I got the question yesterday and I wanted to make sure I told someone that. So, but it is a real good point and it came up again this morning. So I just wanted to make y'all know that that motor needs 6 hours of charge on it. The green light on your charger does not mean it's fully charged. So, but back on your low voltage deal, it is wired, so you don't have to worry about replacing batteries or anything like that. Like I said earlier, that's a one-to-one charger in that picture, but we also offer a power supply that you could put into a closet and wire multiple shades to, so that you wouldn't have to worry about plugging that thing in. So your low voltage motor is very quiet, adjustable speed, again, a good range of motors, and you're looking about the same size as you could do a rechargeable motor with as well.
So you talked to us about a virtually maintenance-free option being house power.
Sure. House power, this is another one that I get a lot of questions on, is that some people say 110 volt motor. Then you also hear 120 volt motor. Sometimes you hear line voltage. Sometimes you hear house power. It's really all the same. If you're going to be using a 110 volt motor, basically the power in a house is anywhere from 110 to 120. That's just the way it is. And again, it doesn't really need to be a big discussion on that, but I just want y'all to be familiar that if you talk to someone and they say, we want a 110 volt motor, but you're looking in stuff and you see 120 volts, it is really the same.
Now, you mentioned, 110, 120, 115, and so forth. Is that just because of AC being alternating current?
That is exactly right. That is why AC is alternating current. That's your AC part. And that range of power is anywhere from 110 to 120 volts. Anything in between, all of your appliances and anything working in your home other than like your dryer or something like that is all going to use that same range of power.
Awesome. Very good. Very good to know. So, I guess really the other half of the equation is control. We know that there are many options or ways for someone to operate the shades, but can you touch on when someone should do a wall switch versus remote and so forth?
Sure. Okay. Basically, we'll take this from the easiest, I guess, up the ladder as we go. But everyone has a remote at the house, whether it be for your television or your satellite system. If you're older like me, maybe your DVD player had one or your VCR. I mean, even your key fob for your car is really a remote. So the most simplest way to have a customer operate their shades is with a remote. Up, down, stop. There's not a whole lot other to it. Pretty much anyone can use a remote without a lot of problems. Taking that and building one step further would be like a wall switch. Again, still wireless, not needing any wire to go with that. But you want to use that in like, a high traffic area. Maybe you're doing something in a commercial application and they're not going to want to have a bunch of remotes because for whatever reason, they seem to walk off. And they don't want to be replacing them all the time. Also, perhaps you have a customer that they've already told you, I lose all my remotes. I've got too many remotes. Well, maybe a simple wall switch would work for them as well. You're going to have, again, an up, down, stop. You could have single channel. You could have multi-channel, multiple shades working off that wall switch, and it's affixed to the wall. So you could either have a flush mount style, which just goes directly to the wall, or we even have multi-channel cutout styles if they'd rather have something that's permanently fixed into that situation.
Gotcha. I don't think that it's any surprise that that voice control usage has exploded.
Sure.
Really, the advent with Alexa and Google and Siri and so forth. But with motorization and home automation, could you maybe explain exactly what people need to have voice control work for their shades?
Sure, of course. And like you spoke earlier, voice control is really taking off. I mean, everyone pretty much has a smartphone, and they're using their Siri or they're using their Google Assistant at home. They may have Google Home or Alexa. So this is really something that's becoming a, second nature to people in their home. So, when we do get into voice control, like one of the most common questions I get is, will these shades work with Alexa? and it could be whomever, but they say, hey, well, these shades work with Alexa. Well, you know, the short answer to that is yes, they will work with Alexa. But the long answer is yes, but it's going to require some additional components other than just your shades and your remote or wall switch. From your first picture, you can see under the Amazon Alexa, if you're going to do Somfy, you would need a MyLink. You'd also need the MyLink app, which is free for iOS as well as for Android. And then you're going to need an Amazon device, whichever it may be, and works with all of them. If you're going to do the Volta, again, you need a Wi-Fi bridge, the free app, and your Echo device if you're using that. I don't want you to be in the position where you've said yes, and the shades get installed, and everything is great, and they download the app, and they think they're just going to use their phone. They can't. They want to make sure that they have the devices needed. Google Assistant with Somfy, again, works fine. You have your MyLink, again, the MyLink app. The Google Assistant on Somfy has to work with an application called IFTTT. That stands for if this, then that. Basically, you set that up to make the Google Assistant work with your shades. Now, Volta, on the other hand, will have a direct connection with the Google Assistant, so you don't have to do it through the IFTTT. It's not a hard setup. I've played with it a lot. I mean, it basically walks you through everything. Somfy does have a lot of information of how to add. They have some things already built in there, so it's not difficult for you to add that in if you're going to go that route. And last but not least, for Siri, the Apple Home Kit is what you would need in order to have your shades work with the Siri device. Now, Somfy is not going to do any upgrading with the MyLink to work with the Apple Home Kit. So if you have a customer that wants to use that and they want to use Siri, then you're going to have to go with Volta because that's the only interface that's going to allow them to work with the Apple Home Kit.
Gotcha. So when, you know, I guess when you look at the landscape of, you know, these control options, it seems like it's not really a bad versus good versus best scenario, but rather, you know, increasing levels of you know, being complex and so forth. But can you give some insight to that?
Sure. I mean, you've thrown the chart up there where it shows, we kind of laid it out as far as from easiest to most difficult. I spoke a little bit earlier about your remote control and your wireless wall switch. That's going to be your easiest way to operate your shades. Not a lot of technology involved there. You just press the button, shades work, and you're good to go. When you step up one level, you can add phone app control, whether it be an Apple phone, Amazon, you know, your basic smartphones, and you can have both control from a remote and use your phone as a remote or smart device. Now the app, you know, will allow you to do a lot of things. I mean, it has built-in timers, scene control. You don't necessarily have to have voice control if you're going to have app control. So I do want to make that part clear, is that you can have app control via your phone without voice control, but you cannot have voice control without having app control. So when you're looking at that and talking to customers, you want to kind of weigh out what they need. I mean, if you have a customer that needs a timer, the smartphone app will be fine for them. If you want a customer needing voice control, then they would need the smartphone app as well as the other devices to do their voice control stuff. Again, voice control, just adding another layer with what you already have. The wired switch application, although it's not hard, it's not a radio type application, so I'm not really going to get into it today. I just kind of want you to know it's available. You may come across some applications where you can't use RF. That doesn't mean that you're done with that project. We do have a solution for that. It's not hard to teach you, but I want you to know that it's there if you do come across that. The third-party integrations, a lot of people get asked about Control 4s, Crestrons, Lutrons. Can they interface with those items? And the answer is yes. The Volta stuff or Rollease has put a lot of information out there and the links and drivers that you need, that the AV guy would need to connect that stuff together. Somfy would as well. Now, I want you to make sure you understand that you don't need to know Control 4 and you don't need to be a Crestron person and all that. Your job is to take it up to the integrator and let them handle it. So as you get more of this, you know, coming down the pipeline, or you have integration questions, reach out. I am more than happy to help you or talk directly to the integrator or whatever it may be in order to get those jobs closed for you. And last but not least, the SDN network, that stands for Somfy Digital Network. That's probably the most complicated on this list. This would be more with building management type systems, things like that. If you're really interested in SDN, that's one you're going to want to contact me so I can lead you in the right direction. That is a whole webinar in itself, but I'll be more than happy to explain some of that if there's anybody out there that actually needs to use it.
Gotcha. So, I think
any
when
questions on that?
it was just there's a few people that the slides weren't
Okay,
showing,
gotcha.
so,
Okay,
yep.
okay, go ahead. Sorry.
So when you think of a motorization and control and so forth, it's almost really easy to get super excited and say yes, yes, yes. I want this and this and this, but without thinking of maybe the budget or the monetary issue. Could you maybe talk about the best way for a dealer to approach an end user about budget and making sure that we meet their expectations on budget with what they want?
Sure. As with anything, the more you want, the more it's going to cost. But you don't always need all those things at the beginning. Now, I do want to make it clear that these are upgradable features. So, maybe you put motorized shades in there and the customer didn't want voice control at the time. Maybe app control works for them just fine. I mean, maybe they just need a timer, like I said earlier, or they just want a scene set for movie night or something like that. Then they don't have to go the full deal with voice control. Once they start playing with it, they may want that voice control, and that just gives you an in to upgrade later on down the line. I think during yesterday's webinar, someone asked me if after the fact you could put any of this stuff in there, and the answer is yes. If you have a customer, they get shades, they have a simple remote and operating, they can always add app control, voice control after the fact. It does not all have to be done at the same time. Maybe you have a customer that you've convinced them to go from manual to motorized. Well, they've upgraded, they've increased their budget, so now they can't do everything. Just give them a remote. Let them start using those shades, playing with those shades, and then as time goes on, they may want to upgrade as well and give you more sales opportunities there too.
Gotcha. So when you look at motorization and what it allows people to do, are there any special needs that need to be taken into consideration?
Well, of course. I mean, I like this avenue of the special needs because over the years we've done a lot of stuff with different people and helped them in a lot of situations. So, let's say you have a customer that's unable to operate a manual shade. Maybe they're wheelchair bound. A motorized shade is going to give them the ability to have the freedom of operating the shades by themselves, not having to ask someone. It's going to be creating an enhanced user experience for them. A simple motorized shade, maybe even if it's just one shade, could make all the difference in the world to them because now more freedom for them to move around. Or maybe you have a customer that they can't operate a remote for whatever reason, health issue. Maybe they've lost some dexterity in their hands. A voice control solution could be perfect for them. Now they can operate their shades, not have to use their hands. And again, an enhanced user experience and the freedom of being able to control their own stuff without having to ask somebody to open or close their shades for them. Maybe you have an end user that has two homes. We know this happens a lot. There's multiple homes. A timer feature in the app would allow them to move different shades at different times to give an appearance that, someone's home. This is not only serving as convenience to your customer, but it's also giving them a level of security. So when you're talking to them, you can be like, hey, I know this is your third home, whatever it may be. We can also offer you security. So not only is this control convenient for you, but it's also offering you some security.
Gotcha. So I guess the question of the day, and we've gotten this a lot for our submissions. Somfy versus Volta, what's better?
Wow, yeah, this is a question that comes up a lot. Which to use, which is better, and that type of deal. Well, I'll say this first of all. They're pretty much the same as far as build, reliability, warranty. They all carry the same warranty on that. What you're really going to look on is it's application based. If you're looking at price point, the Volta is going to come in less expensive than Somfy. That's just how it is. It has nothing to do with quality. It's just the price point of how those motors are priced out. There's some things Somfy can do that Volta can't, vice versa. You hear us say application a lot, but it is really based on application. What technology's in the house? I mean, are they using Somfy now? Are they using Volta? You want to stick to what they have. These systems don't play nice and talk to one another. So you definitely want to not mix and match them. You want to stick with whatever they have. Where's your application located? Are you in the top of a high rise? Are there a lot of RF around? Are you near an airport? Is it a bad application for RF? Maybe you need a wired solution. those will lead us in the direction of the motor you need. If you need a wired solution, it's going to be a Somfy deal. Volta, all wireless type applications. So, to wrap that up, it's like there's no right or wrong product. It's going to really be application based. And if you're just wondering or you're like, hey, I don't know what to use, you can always shoot me an email or something and I'll kind of take you down that path. But each motor does its own thing special, but they will work in whatever application just depending on what it is. We have up there your Somfy. It's going to be simple RF control, anywhere from just a regular tech savvy person, end user type guy, all the way up to high-end incomes, or high-end homes, wired solutions, commercial applications. I lean more towards Somfy there. Volta, simple RF control, consumer-friendly integration, wireless solutions. Volta goes on that route for me. So although it's application-based, very good motors on both sides, but it's going to come down to what you're needing and what your application is calling for.
Gotcha. So, we know that motorization, there's 1,000 things that can go into it. It can be confusing for our partners out in the field and homeowners. But naturally, our goal at TEXTON is to ensure the best customer experience, really, not just during the installation, but also giving our dealers the support that they need to communicate this stuff to the end users. Right?
Sure.
So, how do we do that? So, during the sales cycle, during installation, and then after installation for support.
Sure. Now, when you are going into that job with your customer and finding out what product they're going to be using, take notes of things like if they're going to be doing a Wi-Fi bridge, we're going to need to know the Wi-Fi router name, password, the login information for that to get something like that set up. If they're doing an AC job, they may need access to a AV closet or a breaker, the breaker box. So you want to make sure that the customer knows they may need to get to see that, find out where that is in case they need to kill power for installing shades or something like that. Just the simple things to help the customer realize that the time amount it's going to take, things like that. Typical motorization times, low voltage, less or 10 shades or more, you're probably looking at a full day. If you're doing battery motors or the line voltage, house power, 110 volt motor, however you want to say that, you're going to be looking at 5 to 8 shades per hour, depending on the shade sizes and the job site. If someone's doing an after the fact Wi-Fi bridge setup, hour and a half to connect that bridge up and put in the settings that they need for the app. So not a whole lot of time, but if the customer realizes how much time it may take, they can plan around that, and then in the middle of the installation, they won't have to bail out because they have a meeting or something else they may have to do.
Gotcha. So let's talk about the customer has written the check. Our installers are on site getting things set up. What should be communicated to the homeowners, for installation?
Installation wise, it's very simple process. They just need to know the time pretty much, where the shades are going. That does help. And like I mentioned earlier, Wi-Fi information, if you're going to be using something like that. I was at an installation last Friday, or actually Thursday, and we were doing a Wi-Fi bridge. And when I asked the customer about Wi-Fi, she pointed to the sky and said, they told me it comes from here. And I told her I needed the router, which was probably a small black box with some lights on there in the house somewhere. And she went to her room and brought a box out that she said she unplugged it when she moved from California, and this must be it. But it wasn't connected to anything. So she had no idea what the Wi-Fi router, any of that information was, or passwords, nothing. We ended up having to wait for her daughter to get there, which was not a big deal, and everything ended up beautiful, but it was a slowdown. And going in there, we like to make sure the customer realizes we know what we're doing, and to make it simple, seamless, so we can explain to them and they can have a good user experience while we're there.
Gotcha. So, correct me if I'm wrong, but, it seems like the more complex and connected these systems are, the greater the chance there's going to be a request for support or revisions later on. When a homeowner contacts a dealer and the dealer wants to get TEXTON involved, what is the best way to go about that? What information should be communicated?
Sure.
All that stuff.
The communication deal is really big because a lot of times I'll get a call and the shade doesn't work. Okay, well, that's not really the problem. What we try to find out is really what the problem is. So, if you take your car to the mechanic and the service advisor comes out and says, "Mr. Fisher, how may I help you?" and I say, "My car doesn't work," he's going to say, "What's wrong with it? What are we looking for?" It's the same thing with your motorized shades. When did the issue start? Uh, did something happen? Did you have a storm? Is it more than one shade? The more than one shade thing is really important because of all the years I've done all this, I've never had like a bunch of motors fail on a job for no reason. So if you have a customer that has multiple shades not working, more than likely it's something to do with either power or programming, could be user error. But a lot of these issues can be solved over the phone. So if we gather enough information, I have no issue giving you the information to solve it. Or if necessary, I can contact customers too and help solve it over the phone. So there is a lot of tech support and a lot of things we can do without sending someone out there. We don't want you to have to go out there all the time either. And once this job is installed and done properly, it should not be something that you're going to be going back to all the time.
So during the registration process, each of you did submit some questions to be answered. We want to take the next, say, 15 minutes or so, or 10 or 15 minutes, and answer those questions. If this is your question, feel free to speak up and maybe add some clarification to it and so forth. And then once these are done, we'll open up the floor and unmute each of you to ask questions ad hoc. So
what's our time?
Our time right now is 10:38.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Okay, cool. I got a big list of questions. So yesterday I took a little bit too much time over them. So if I don't address your question, I have the list and I will personally email you the answer back. So that way I know your question got answered. So I just went through this one and pulled out a couple of questions I thought that everyone might want to hear the answer to. So I did get a question from Marjorie Ellis Interior Design. Her question was a good one because she said, do remotes interfere with other electronics, i.e. TV or so in the same room? The answer is no, they do not. I have a MyLink and a remote in the same room with my family room television, and then I have a remote in my office with another television, and I have no interference problems whatsoever. One thing you want to probably look out for is you're not going to want to plug in if you're doing a MyLink or even a hub, you're not going to want to plug it in behind the television or something like that. You could run into some interference there, but as far as just using the remote or using a wireless wall switch, you should not have any interference with your TV or any other electronics in that room. So that's a really good question because televisions and sound bars and all that other stuff that works on RF is another set of RF signals in the home. But I have not found any issue with working my shades or my MyLink with the TV in the rooms with the television. So that is really a good question, and everyone should have that answer there. Also, I had one that was another good one from Kelly Bloomfield from Porta Window Designs, asked about the Volta rechargeable motors. Should they be charged after you install? And then also any tricks for the installation of the Volta rechargeable motors or anything that we might not know and should know. Well, one of the things, like I mentioned earlier, is the charger. These motors, 6 hours for a full charge. A full charge, the motor should run 500 cycles on a full charge. A cycle is considered one up, one down, and these motors should take 500 charging cycles before they have any issues. So I know a lot of times we get asked about how long will it last, or you may have a customer that says, question?
Yeah.
Good. Oh, okay, let me wrap this one up. You may have a customer that says, hey, I'm not getting 500 cycles out of my shade, whatnot. Just be aware that is like an average. Shade size is going to matter, as well as if it was fully charged or not. If the customer charged at the light turned green, they unplugged it right then, it wasn't fully charged, or they're not going to get that many cycles out of the motor.
Great. So Leslie with Jeffrey Evans Custom Homes, or Custom Interiors, excuse me, asked, is router placement relevant?
Router placement is not as relevant as hub placement because your hub is going to be working off the router, okay? So most people can't move their routers around a lot. I mean, at my house, for instance, the router is fixed. So I had to adjust my hubs, my MyLink, to work with my router. So if you have a situation where you have shades that are far away and you can move the router, it's only going to help the situation out, because less distance equals better reliability. So if it can be moved, sure, but you're really going to be moving your hubs around versus moving the actual router around.
And just to clarify, so the hub is what communicates to the shade. The router is what communicates the internet part to the hub.
The router is what your cable provider, or internet provider, I should say, gave you so that you have internet. The hub is the device you would be purchasing for us to make your shades work via Wi-Fi.
Okay, great question, Leslie, and thank you so much. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Let's see. A couple of people ask me this, and I'm going to get back with you directly myself, but how to program the remote. Programming the remote is not difficult, but it's hard for me to tell you how to do it here. I will send you an email for both the Volta and the Somfy Motors on setting up limits. Take a look and get back with me, and we can go over it one-on-one. I have no issue with that at all. I am in the process of shooting some videos about programming, but I just haven't gotten there yet. So I will do additional videos about programming remote, but I'll send you some instructions so that you can have that ahead of time as well. And I have a couple of people that asked that question. Linda Loss, as well as Euphenia Galliano, asked that as well, and I'll take care of both of you with some answers there. Let's see here. Mary Lauren Faulkner asked, best-selling aspect of motorization. You know, the best-selling aspect of the whole deal here is convenience. You know, it's really all about convenience and what the customer needs. Like I mentioned earlier, you know, someone being away from the home a lot, being able to move their shades with timers to make it appear their home. Security. You're also, maybe you have furniture that's in the sun that you don't want to get bleached out. Your carpet, maybe it's painting, whatever it may be. Using motorization helps you to preserve some of the stuff that you've already paid a lot of money for that you don't want to get ruined because of sun or heat and things like that. So the selling aspect is going to be convenience. It's going to be security. It's going to be being able to protect things that you want inside your house. All of those kind of package deal up for a better user experience. And that's really what you're selling to the customer, is the convenience and the user experience to help them out. And on that still, I'd like to say, someone asked me about selling motorization. How do I get my customer to overcome the pricing? You know, a little analogy that I use about it is that, you know, sometimes you have to prime the pump, if you want to say, or it's kind of like if you've ever gone to a dealer and bought a new car, or you're gonna buy a new car, and all the paperwork's done, but you're sitting there thinking, man, should I do it? Man, should I do it? Man, should I do it? And the guy comes out and says, you know what? Take the car home, bring it back tomorrow. They know when you get in that car and you smell that leather and you're driving it around, you're not gonna want to go back to your old car. So maybe if you have a customer that you just can't get over the hump, maybe you do some sort of promotion for one shade and a single channel remote. Let them play with that item. Once they see how convenient it is for them, selling them additional shades could be a lot simpler. But it doesn't, you know, it's not going to take you a lot of money or anything. Discount it out for them and just be like, hey, I'll do one shade for you to see how you like it. Maybe the kitchen shade, whichever shade they're going to be using a lot. And that will kind of help drive them wanting more motorized products.
So I was talking to a client last week who actually sells a lot of motorization, and he said the best way to do it is just put the remote control in their hand and have them try it out, and then try and take it back, and usually they're going to buy a motorized product. So
it's always nice when you're playing with something new. It makes you want it. So I know they've gotten me a bunch of times with taking the old car home, and you know, it smells so good and it sounds so great and everything's good. And you get home and the wifey rides in it and the kids ride in it and they all love it. And then when you go back to the dealer and you see your other car, you're like, nah, I think I'll go ahead and pull the trigger. Same with motorization. It's a new toy. And I say that a lot because you'll get a customer that gets a rechargeable battery motor and they'll call you and say the batteries ran out really quickly. Well, what they didn't tell you is they had to show their mom and the neighbors and friends and everybody and run it up and down and up and down and up and down a bunch and run out the batteries. They say that the shade gets most of its use in the the first 60 days because people are just wearing it out because they want to show everybody their new toy. But then after that, and they see how convenient it is, they're always wanting to upgrade or add shades to that so that they can continue to benefit from having a motorized shade. I did have a question I think I hit earlier, but I'll just make sure. This was Paula Ross at PER Designs. Battery versus hardwire. I do get that question a lot. The big difference here is going to be, like I say, with the external battery motor, you're looking at a smaller shade. With your rechargeable battery motor, you can go larger. But no matter what you do with either one of those motors, they will have to have maintenance at some point. Your external battery one motor will have to have the batteries changed. Your rechargeable motor will have to have the motor charged at some point. And your motor, whether it be low voltage or a line voltage motor that's wired directly to power or plugged in directly to power, will not have to have any maintenance. So that's going to be your big difference. Is going to be having wire and maintenance and no maintenance versus having no wire and some maintenance. This one was from, and I'm not great at names, so please pardon me on that. Efren Ariza from AAA Innovations. I'd like to know more about your product, which I hope you've learned a little bit more. I can definitely go in depth more with that if necessary. Programming. I didn't really set this up to be a programming deal, but I am in the process of doing some short videos on programming. If you'd like me to touch base with you personally, I can do that as well. We can talk over the phone about it, or I can send you some documents on the programming before I get the video out. So you have my email, or you'll get it at the end. So if you'd like additional information, I will provide that to you on the programming. And also on app control, I'm not sure exactly what you want to know on app control, but if you can, we get Efren on the open his mic so he can ask. Is he on there about his app control question? It just said app control, and I want to answer that question.
I'm here.
Oh, great, great, awesome. One of your questions was about app control. What would you like to know?
Well, my clients, they're millennials, and they don't care much about the old-fashioned control.
Sure.
So right now, one of the hurdles that I have when I'm selling is that they are telling, hey, it is motorized, but it's not smart motorized. So really, what I wanted to do, and I think you explained a little bit about Alexa, and I think it's some way that they can use their cell phone as the remote control.
Okay. Yes. Now, with both Somfy and Volta. Once you download the app and you have the hub, you can have complete control of the shades from your phone. Your phone can be the remote. Whether it be individuals or groups or whatever you have set up on there, they can use that phone as the remote. I mean, you could even set up all the shades with your own personal remote, get it in the app, and they don't have a remote at all, if that's what they wanted to do. So they don't necessarily have to have a remote to operate it, but a remote is needed to set the shades up. So they can do app control without voice control. And like I said earlier, this is for Google Home, Alexa. If they want to go the Siri route with the Apple HomeKit, I know a lot of people are doing a lot of HomeKit stuff in their homes now. The Volta will allow them to do that as well. So we should be able to provide you with whatever the millennials may want to operate their shades. I mean, everything is going toward the smart home deal, and we're definitely on board with getting those customers what they need if that's the direction they want to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you for the question and for being here.
Thank you.
Okay, my next question was, it was from Lee Blake Design. Lee Blake had asked me, how do you choose which number of channels is best for the client's needs and the number of shades? There's another question in here also kind of about channels. And what I want to say is that if you have a house with multiple rooms and each room has shades in there, it wouldn't be a bad idea to put a remote for each room that they need. On the Volta stuff, you can have 15 channels. Somfy's maximum, I believe, is 16 channels. But just realize that most of the time you can set things up in groups that will keep them from having to use a channel for every single shade. I'll combine this with a question from Christy Mize from Country View Window Coverings. She she has 30 shades and you only have 15 channels on the remote. She'd normally put each individual room on a single channel, one channel per room on rooms that have multiple shades, but it's been a problem getting them into the app. Now, again, if you've got 30 shades, distance is probably also going to be an issue. So you want to look at what can be grouped. If I have 5 shades across my patio window, do I really need to operate them one at a time? It kind of defeats my purpose sometimes. So maybe you group those 5 and you freed up 4 channels. So you kind of want to look at your layout and see what you can group together to cut down on the number of channels that you use. But on multi-roomed homes, and you're doing bedrooms and offices and masters and living rooms, multiple remotes is really the way to go so that they can have control of those rooms and you won't have to have everything or a bunch of remotes as your masters to operate everything from just the living room and have everything on there. I hope that answers your question. Again, let me know if it doesn't. Can you open that up a little bit?
Yeah.
Make sure they can.
That was
Lee Blake and Christy.
Let me see here. Lee Blake, unmute. Fish. You'll let me, maybe.
Lee, are you there? Is anybody there that can hear? We're trying to unmute, so bear with us.
I think she muted herself.
Okay, all right, great. Okay, well, I'll move on, but again, Lee, as well as Christy Mize, if you need more information on setting up your remotes, channels, groups, that type of deal, reach out to me. I'll take care of that for you as well. I can kind of lead you down the path that'll help you out in those situations. Deborah Estes from DES Interiors, battery versus hardwire. Okay, here we go. I kind of talked on this a little bit earlier, but your battery, you're going to be separated into 2 kinds of batteries. And I'm guessing you're talking the rechargeable motors versus wiring a motor in. Your big deal here is going to be maintenance. On a battery motor, whether it be external or internal, someone is going to have to either recharge that motor at some point or replace batteries at some point. A shade that is wired into the power will never have to have anything replaced as far as power. So if you're looking at, a shade to go in and be left alone, hardwire is the way to go. Shades that require some maintenance of some kind would be more your battery. And again, battery for very small shades, because you're going to have min problem if you're on a hardwire motor, bigger size shades than you could do with a battery motor. Okay, Janice Everly, Lone Star Blinds and Shutters. Somfy versus store brand. I'm not sure what that means, but solar panels, I kind of hit on that a little bit. The solar panel is a great option if it can get great sun. If not, or your customer has tinted windows or a lot of shades, it's really not a good option you want to use. On the Volta side, the solar panel will connect directly to the motor and charge that motor, that rechargeable motor. On the Somfy, it will not. They still have an external battery that's charging off the solar panel. So make sure to remember it is a trickle charge. I kind of gave you the water pot or water bucket analogy earlier, but it does work in the correct application. So,
well, hey folks, again, if you have any questions, reach out to Nevera Fisher. His email is on the screen here. It is nfisher@texton.com. If you want to know any more information about our new roller shade program called Color, you also have my email address, which is rcrist, RCRIST @texton.com, and reach out to me for those questions. Again, hey, thank you so much for joining. I hope each of you have a great weekend and are staying healthy and safe, and God bless.